Bubonic plague, also known as Black Death, is one of three types of plague caused by the plague bacterium Yersinia pestis. 1 to 7 days after exposure, flu-like symptoms develop with cough, aches and fevers. Swellings of the lymph nodes, also known as buboes, would follow shortly thereafter. They would swell and fill up with pus. When these buboes burst, death would follow very shortly thereafter. While in the throes of bubonic plague, a poor person without recourse to normal doctors would often have to call the services of a plague doctor. A plague doctor was someone who treated the poor of the district. Their iconic costume with the beak-like mask is instantly recognisable and a favourite in festivals and any kind of dress-up due to its signification with one of the worst times of our history. A plague doctor was hired by cities to treat infected patients regardless of income, and they had a mixed reputation, with some of them being known as charlatans who would sell false cures to the poor for as much as they could get. In some cases, the plague doctors were well-known salesmen before they decided to become plague doctors. In times of plague, the city would be desperate for people to treat the poor, and plague doctors would come in very, very useful at this time. Plague doctors would be considered essential in treating the poor at this time, as they were the only ones who could be found to treat the poor. However, since there was no cure for bubonic plague, this reputation may be partially preserved. Plague doctors practiced bloodletting and other remedies such as putting frogs or leeches on the buboes, the lymph node swellings, to rebalance the humours. In those days, a physician believed that the body was built up of 4 humours that needed to be balanced for the patient to be well. A plague doctor's principal tasks, beside treating people with the plague, was to compile public records of plague deaths. So the plague doctor would take the names of everyone who was infected and put them on the city census, so that the city census would know how many people were infected and how many people were dying. The iconic costume of the plague doctor consisted of an ankle-length leather coat, a big leather hat and the bird-like beak mask. The beak was filled with herbs such as lavender, peppermint, camphor, juniper berry and ambergris. These were thought to keep away miasmas or disease-spreading airs. The thick miasmas that were thought to cause disease was a very, very common belief at this time. Plague doctors also carried a long wooden stick so that they could treat the patient without having to touch them. There are many notable instances of plague doctors, many famous plague doctors, but today when we see a plague doctor costume, it's often in fun. However, these dark, iconic costumes remind us of a time when we lost over half our world's population. And to see a plague doctor in those times was no fun, but a harbinger of death. Nostradamus himself was treated by a plague doctor. He drank a juice of rose hips and shortly recovered. However, it's since thought that Nostradamus did not have plague, as if he did, he would not have been able to recover. A plague doctor's duties often involved the removal of corpses, as well as many other duties. Stay